Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday. What is today? Wednesday, September 13th. Yes, sorry. I just had a brain fart there and completely forgot as usual. I'm your host, Shawn King. Thank you guys very much for joining me here this evening. Appreciate you guys being tuned in, whether you're listening in live or whether you're tuned in to the archive. We were talking in the pre-show. For those folks who might not know, we do at 5 o'clock, or 4:30, 5 o'clock, I actually start broadcasting just to check all the equipment and microphones and that kind of stuff. And we chat in the IRC chat room, the Slack chat room about stuff ahead of time. And Monty says, if Apple is streaming the event, what's the point of a live blog? Well, I get it for a very, very small subset of people who can't, for example, watch at work. You know, the boss will let them, or their whatever, they can't watch video while they're at work, but they can read a live blog on their phone or on their web browser. So I get that. But I was saying in the pre-show that live bloggers don't need to be in the room. They can be somewhere else. If all you're doing is watching your screen and not paying attention to what the guys on stage are doing, there's no need for you to be physically in the room. That's just my opinion. It's the way I always worked when I was doing those things. But anyway. Thanks very much for joining me. On tonight's show, as always, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. We can talk about the Apple event. That's the only thing that's going on, the only thing that's important. As I always said, if you own a company and that company sent out a press release yesterday about a product, fire your public relations company because they're idiots. Because no one's paying attention to anything but what Apple announced yesterday. I'm going to talk to Jim about that. We're going to talk to you guys about that, too. Did you watch the event? What did you think? I'm always curious to know what our good friend Sly thinks about the events, because she is the mix between the average person and a nerd, somewhere in between, because she knows enough about the technology that she's more than just average, but she's not a full-blown nerd. So what is Sly's lust factor for the new devices? That's always curious to me. I watched the event with Melissa, the lovely Melissa. She doesn't want me to call her the cute Australian girl, so that's why I stopped there. I'm sorry, Melissa. I told you I wouldn't call you the cute Australian girl. It's always interesting to watch these kinds of events from the point of view of someone who's never involved in this stuff. She's never seen a keynote before. And as we talk about this, I'll intersperse my thoughts with her comments. And it was really interesting. It's really interesting to see and hear from someone who isn't steeped in the past of these events and just looking at it from their point of view of the average, everyday, normal type person. So we'll talk about that later on the show. We're also going to, in our starting point photography segment, welcome a new sponsor, the nice folks at Lowepro. They make these. They make bags. They make carrying kits for your gear. This is my favorite camera bag manufacturer is Lowepro, LOWEPRO.com. They make some great stuff for all kinds of camera stuff. This holds my... In this bag, I generally put in, this is how much stuff this bag carries. I generally put in my Nikon D600 body, a Nikon 135mm lens, 50mm lens, the Olympus M1 with the 12 to 40 lens on it, and the 70 to 300 lens on it. A bottle of water goes in the top. I've got extra camera cards. I will have usually a light, off-camera flash on here, and then there's a pocket in the top for little things like paper and car keys and things like that. And then the bag goes over your head like that, and so it's this sort of strappy kind of bag that slides across your body. I really like it. I really like it. It doesn't work with headphones on, but... So thanks very much to the nice folks at Lowepro for joining us for this month. And they're going to give away 2 bags at the end of the month. So stay tuned for more information about that. So I was watching the event yesterday, and seeing a bunch of pictures, just about an hour into it, when the media folks started to post pictures on Twitter about the Steve Jobs Theater and walking up to it and that kind of stuff. And it looked really, really cool. It looked, from those pictures, much cooler than even the drone shots that we'd seen for the past few months. And the comments from Jim and others on Twitter were really interesting about what their thoughts were in the moment. So we'll talk to Jim about that, but I was really impressed with the space. But I don't think we really conceptualized the space until warm bodies started to go in there. We talked about this in the pre-show, that the roof of that Steve Jobs Theater is held up by the glass. As someone in the RC chat room pointed out, that the roof is carbon fiber, and it only, air quotes, only weighs 8,000 pounds. It's an incredible space. Really, really interesting design technique of that. I'm sure you're going to see other companies start doing these kinds of things, because it's a beautiful, wide, open space. There's no pillars holding up the roof. There's nothing in your way of seeing the entire space. And then going down into the theater itself with the stairs or the elevator. And as someone pointed out, I said in the pre-show that the Fifth Avenue Apple Store's elevator turns. It doesn't. There is another one. I thought the Fifth Avenue one did, and I was corrected, and it doesn't. There's another, I don't know which store it is, but there's another Apple Store, and like the Steve Jobs Theater, when you walk in to the elevator, you're facing outside, but as the elevator goes down, it turns, and now you're facing to the inside, which is a very, very clever design that Apple's used before. And then there was the I guess the big thing everyone was talking about was the seats themselves, not the seating arrangement. The seating arrangement is typical theater seating. But the seats themselves, according to Bloomberg, those seats were $14,000 a piece. And they look beautiful. And it's kind of funny that so much attention was paid to this, but for me, it's it shows Apple's insane attention to detail, that they care about those things. Because remember, this isn't just a space for the media. This is going to be a space for shareholders and for corporate type of events, for probably employee movies and other kinds of things like that. So it's not just the media whose butts will be in those seats. Wayne says, windows break, everyone goes splat. Yeah, but there'd have to be a significant number of those windows to break. One window breaking wouldn't bring down the roof. You probably have to lose at least half, if not, say, a quarter or to a half. And if that's the case, you've got other issues. There's other problems going on. Mosquito says, does carbon fiber reflect sound the same way as metal or concrete? I'd say it probably absorbs sound. MacMan, someone also speculated there was metal between the glass panels that take the load to the ground. Well, remember Apple was talking about in the keynote the glass on the back of the iPhones is got steel inside of it. So maybe they did it with this, although I don't know if it's even possible to do it on glass this size. But I do know, I remember reading the stories that Apple's glass manufacturer had to invent entirely new ways of developing glass. Because of the design specs that Apple had put on them. So, fascinating stuff. By the way, Monty is talking in the IRC chat room about his experience with what's left over with Irma, and even Monty there in Atlanta is getting hit a lot. So hopefully everyone is safe and sound in Florida. The storm hit and was devastating, but it doesn't sound like, I think because there was so much warning, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Granted, there was lots of loss of life in the Caribbean and incredible damage in some of the islands there. And hopefully everyone you are safe, and everyone you know is safe as well. Mosquito says, I can't imagine how anyone in the Keys is going to pick up their lives, much less places like Haiti. Exactly. So hopefully everyone's safe and sound there. So we're going to talk about the Apple Theater, the presentation. I don't know about you, But the opening with Steve Jobs' voice, I got a little verklempt. You saw Tim Cook wipe a tear from his eye too, and it's completely understandable. That was emotional. That was important. It was a great way, I think, to open that theater. I think it was a great thing to have the first voice heard in that theater be Steve Jobs's. So I think that was a wonderful touch by Apple. Do it very quickly off the top, spend a couple minutes talking about it, and then move on. The products themselves, for whatever reason, I don't know why, I'm now interested in getting an Apple Watch. I wasn't before, and that's not because of the LTE, because I don't care about LTE. I don't use the phone enough to ever worry about using my Apple Watch as a phone. But the price didn't go down, did it? At any point, it just seems like something I want now. And as for the Apple TV, I'm no interest in the Apple TV. They don't have a 4K TV, so it'll be utterly pointless. I'm still using my third generation Apple TV. I only have an Apple TV 4. So, but the iPhone 8 Plus, and iPhone, are we going to call it iPhone X or iPhone 10? I like iPhone X better. I think it sounds cooler. But the iPhone 10, I want an iPhone 10. I really, really want an iPhone 10. The problem is, here in Canada, it's going to be upwards of $1,300 for the base 64 gig iPhone 10. Now, my first thing I'm going to do is talk to TELUS and Rogers here in Canada and go, okay, what kind of payment plans can you give me? Because there's no way I'm dropping $1,300 on the table and walking out with an iPhone 10. No, not a chance. Not going to happen. No way. But if the payment plans are reasonable, $50, $75, I might be able to swing that for the next couple of years. What about you guys? Anything in the keynote jazzed you in particular? The Animoji stuff. I had no interest in the Animoji stuff. I still really don't. Until Federighi started doing the faces. And that was kind of cute. And you can see how there'll be new Animojis coming in the future. It's not just the 12 they showed there. That was cute. I wish Federighi was doing more of that stuff. As much as I like him as a human being, as a person, I don't like Phil Schiller's presentation style. Never have. He just feels inauthentic is the best way to describe him. And again, we'll talk more about that with Jim Dalrymple later on. In our starting point photography segment, later on the show, we're going to introduce the nice folks at Lowepro at lowepro.com, talk about their bags for a little bit, and talk about a photo critique. I did a photo critique over the weekend with some of the folks from my meetup group, and we'll show off some of their photos and tell you what I told them and get your thoughts and opinions on the photo critique as well. But up next, we'll talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. But all the things that Apple announced yesterday. This is your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. In our phone room now, we've got our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I can't wait to talk about something else besides what happened yesterday.
Yeah, it's all been done, hasn't it? And there's really nothing else to say. Let's just move on. So, what are you planning for the weekend? First thing first is I thought it was really interesting. You posted two interesting photos on Twitter as you were, I guess you were walking to the Steve Jobs Theater, and the first one was a bit of a long shot, and it was really hard to see what you were shooting. But I gotta say, and I don't know if you did this on purpose, you didn't have your horizon dead center, so congratulations. It was nicely composed. You have the tree in the foreground, so as a photograph, you didn't do a bad job.
I have no idea what you just said, but thank you.
So even if it was an accident, and like I said, I assume it was. Now, this was your first view of the new campus, wasn't it?
It was.
And did it strike you? I mean, did you stop in place and take this picture, or was this planned, or did you, what was your initial reaction in that first shot?
It was breathtaking.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
It really was. I mean, it's a building, for God's sake. But I mean, I've stopped in places around the world and looked at famous buildings and been in awe, but never a new one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never something like this. And when you're walking up this path, all of a sudden it starts to come into view as you're walking up the path. And that's the shot that I took there when it started to come into view.
Yeah.
And then you get up further, and when you stand at Steve Jobs Theater, that's the other shot that I took. Now, and to me, those shots looked almost like artist renderings more than pictures. Yeah.
It looks like the theater is quite a ways away from the building. Is that true?
It is, yeah.
Is that seems to be surprising to me that it would be that. I just assumed that the theater, just before we saw the pictures of it, would have been dead center of the spaceship. But I guess they want to keep you filthy media folks outside the spaceship. Isn't that it?
Well, it would be less disruptive to have it where it is, because we can all go in one entrance and Apple employees can go in another. I mean, if they have something at Town Hall now, they basically, block off the loop.
Yeah, that's right.
So
then you walk into this remarkable space, and I don't think we really grasped what the inside of the theater looks like until the picture started to come to us. Did that kind of blow you away too? That the openness of that space, but there's still a roof above you?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, again, you walk up around the corner, and all of a sudden, there it is. Yeah. And you're thinking, "Oh my God, look at that thing!" It was pretty remarkable.
How did sound in there? Mo was asking about the sound qualities of the carbon fiber roof. Did you notice any weird echoing or anything along those lines?
There is no echoing. There is no anything, because Apple, the carbon fiber is all perforated with like millions of little holes to absorb the sound.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
It's just crazy. Yeah. I mean, the stuff is just crazy.
The whole design of this thing is just, I'm sure there are architectural students who will study this thing for millennia to come, just because it's, as I said earlier, they invented entire new design languages and philosophies and techniques to create this entire space, let alone the Steve Jobs Theater.
Yep. And it shows.
Yeah.
It really does. Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely stunning.
The attention to detail is amazing. Does it feel like the roof's going to fall on you? It seems to.
No.
Well, because of all that glass, and there's no support beams there. The glass is holding up the roof. I get that really weird sense of the building going to fall on top of you.
No, you don't get that sense at all.
Interesting.
Nothing. I mean, it's like there's all the glass and the roof is just kind of floating there.
Yeah.
As
opposed to imposing on you, it feels like it's floating.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting about it all is that Johnny hammered every nail. You know,
Bullshit.
he
There are
went
no
in,
nails in that building. Come on now.
he went in and worked on weekends, you know, crafting the stone, and he worked some nights, not every night, but some nights.
Some nights, yeah. Some other nights, him and Mark Newsom had to go do a gala somewhere, yeah.
Yeah.
So next up was going down into the actual space, those gorgeous stairwells that Apple has, or the elevator. And I hate to do this, but we have to. How nice were those seats?
Seats were very nice.
Were they leather?
Yeah, they were.
Now, do they have armrests, or do they have like the fold-down car armrests?
No, they had armrests.
Like they were permanent armrests?
Yes.
Okay, because I thought I saw in some places where people look like they're sitting on wonderfully comfortable benches.
Well, in some places, at the lower part of the theater, they're coaches, like benches.
Okay.
And then in the upper section, they have leather chairs.
Ah, got it. So there were two different sets of chairs. That's why I saw two different things. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So, that's right. One thing I wanted to ask you about was that I saw a tweet about this, and I wasn't sure if it was correct. And let me just pull up the tweet to ask you about it. Daniel Dilger from Apple Insider said, Apple played an introduction from Steve Jobs, audio recording, not a hologram. They asked the audience to turn off phone screens and close laptops. Did they do that?
They did.
Now, see, we didn't hear that on the video that we were watching remotely. And the reason why I asked that is because it was very obvious when they did a long shot over everyone's shoulder that suddenly all the screens had gone dark. They had all gone dim. So I wasn't sure why that. I thought maybe Apple just pulled the plug on everybody or whatever it might have been. But they actually asked you guys to turn off your laptops.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
And everybody did. Because it was a respectful moment for Steve.
Did they say that?
No, they.
Because you wouldn't have known why they're asking you to close your laptop or turn off your phones.
To be honest, I can't remember if they did or not.
Okay, just curious.
But they didn't say, "Hey, assholes, turn off your computer." They said something like, "If you would close your laptops," and I can't remember what they said after that. I didn't have a laptop or a phone out, so
good.
I have my notepad, and I immediately closed it in case the paper was bright and shiny. So.
Do you not know how notebooks work? Notepads don't work that way, dude. But I thought having the first voice heard in the Steve Jobs Theater be Steve Jobs. I don't know about you guys there in the room, but I got a little verklempt, a little teared up.
Yeah,
it was
pretty amazing.
It was a wonderful thing to do. And you saw Tim Cook when he came out on stage and talked for a couple minutes. Cook wiped away a tear too. I mean, that was a powerful moment.
Yeah,
there was no artifice there. This was not a marketing thing. This was an honest expression of their affection and love for Steve Jobs.
Yep. It was powerful.
Angela Arendt came on, and they, as I said in the Loop story I posted today, that they've talked about this concept for a while now, but it wasn't until I heard her say it that I found it a little jarring. They did their usual state of retail type thing, which is great to see and great to hear, but they want to call these things town squares and the like. Does that?
I have to stop you right there.
All right. Because you have to go take care of the baby?
And no, that's my neighbor. Holy crap. So, trying to work out here. So, I saw your post today about the name of town squares. And what's funny, I had a discussion with somebody yesterday and am writing a story about how that is just so awful.
Yep.
The name town squares. No, it is a store. I understand what you're trying to do, but you're being so disingenuous and so fake. I mean, Apple has great names for things.
Yep.
for features and stuff that they have. So Handoff, is a great name for a feature. It tells you exactly what's going on. Apple's retail stores are not town squares. I don't care what they say. They're not town squares. And this stuff that they have going on inside, when you go inside, you go to the avenues. No, you don't. You go to iPhone cases. That's where you go. You don't go. And then she said, and then we have these wonderful people that we like to call creative pros. Yeah, that's what everybody calls them. You didn't just coin a new phrase here.
Yep.
That's what everybody calls them. They're creative pros because they're pros, and I guess they're creative. So it just seems so fake. Apple is usually so genuine in everything that it does. And I just got the exact opposite impression about retail.
Yeah, it just feels so forced. As someone commented on the Loop story, that it's so pretentious. And I don't think I think pretentious for me anyway is too strong a word, but it's awfully close. It just feels so forced and so marketing speak and so just not Apple-like to want to rename these things in this kind of way.
It seems like they're trying too hard. You are Apple. You don't need to try that hard. Yeah. And I'll give you a perfect example. Last year, Phil said on stage that that the new iPhone, this one, is black. Yeah. We call it black.
Yep, that's right.
You don't have to try hard. It's black. That's it. I don't know what it is about the whole retail thing, but it just seems wacky to me.
Yeah, it does. And I think part of it for me is that they've already started this back when they first announced the stores, the idea of the theaters and the common space and that kind of stuff. And then they got rid of that in the name of the almighty retail god. And now they're bringing it back. So I maybe that's part of it too for me is like, this is the second kick at the can of this stuff. It was successful before, but because you needed more space to sell more stuff, you got rid of those things. Now you're trying to bring it back. And I guess the other thing is too that so few of Apple's customers are actually going to see these kinds of spaces because the vast majority of us don't live in areas with a store big enough to be able to have one of these kinds of spaces there. So,
well, I don't think there's any doubt that when you look at an Apple retail space, that it is gorgeous.
Yes.
It is a gorgeous space. There is no doubt. They've done all the glass and wood and everything else, and it's wonderful. Leave it at that.
Yeah.
You don't need to call the iPhone case section the Avenue.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it is an iPhone case section. Yeah. That is what it is. Yeah. Tell people. I wonder what they say when you come in and say, "Oh, can you tell me where the iPhone cases are?" Yes, they're in that avenue. What avenue? Yeah. What the fuck are you talking about? What avenue? I got to go back outside. They're down the street.
That's
what?
Right.
No, the iPhone cases are right over there.
Yeah, yeah. I think the other aspect of it too is that I saw a picture on Twitter today. They're starting to hide, in particular the iPhone cases, the manufacturers of the iPhone cases in order to find out who makes the case that you're looking at, because all the cases are now front and center, and then there's a box behind the case. So you have to kind of move the case out of the way to see whether it's a Griffin case or a Belkin case. I don't know why that bothers me so much, because they seem to be saying that they're all the same, or I don't know what it is. Just I don't know. I just find that they're not doing enough retail stuff, and they keep trying to force these things to be community meeting places. But they're not, because I can't go and have a photography class there. You guys won't let me. When Mac user groups wanted to use the original retail stores for theaters, Apple wouldn't let them. They wouldn't let them have meetings inside the store. And now they're trying to get us to come back and do that kind of stuff. And it just sort of feels kind of false to me.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really noticed people talking about, you folks in the media who were there, was that screen behind Cook at all. It seemed, even watching the video, that it was a bigger screen than they'd used before. But even watching on my TV at home, HD TV, it seemed like it was a much better screen visually. Now, when Phil Schiller was showing off the 4K HDR content on the Apple TV, it didn't make any difference to us watching at home. Did you guys in the room notice the quality of that screen?
Oh, yeah. It was noticeable. I mean, you can tell that they're I bet that screen costs more than my LG TV.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say that they spent a lot of time picking out and building that screen because it was beautiful. There's no doubt. And yes, you could tell when he showed 4K compared to HDR.
Yeah.
It was great. At that point, you just said, "No, I don't want 4K.
Yeah.
I only want HDR."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Apparently, it's got the widest color gamut of any presentation center in the world. Someone said it's got a dual laser projection system, a Dolby Cinema surround sound. It's an incredible space when it comes to doing those kinds of presentations. And as Cook said, it's a purpose-built space for that kind of stuff. Apple couldn't do this before. They couldn't do these kinds of presentations before this moment in time.
Right. Now, was the screen bigger? I don't know because of the space.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen them at Moscone, and we've seen them at Bill Graham and Yerba Buena. It's hard to tell in relation to those places if they've ever used bigger screens, but I don't think they've ever used as good of a screen as this.
Yeah, I think it's what a lot of folks were saying, that someone challenged that, and they said, yes, that Samsung has used bigger screens, but no one's ever used a better screen than this. It was the first time they'd seen a true HDR screen on that much space. It was really incredible. And it makes a difference. It makes a difference in the presentation, how impressive it is to those small minds in the media.
Well, especially when you're trying to show how this product is better than anything else, and you can show, okay, here's 4K, but here's 4K HDR.
Yeah.
And when you split the screen and show that, it was remarkable, the difference.
Next up was the Apple Watch Series 3, the next version of the Apple Watch. You've got the second version of the Apple Watch.
I do.
The LTE functionality of it make it worth the while? Do you buy a new one just for that?
Hell yes.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Because you're on your phone a lot more than I am. So for you, I guess that kind of makes sense.
Well, I'm not. I don't even do many phone calls anymore.
Really?
It's not the phone calls. It's the other types of communication that you do. So that's mostly text. If you're going to communicate with somebody, and the fact that you have, so here, when I go out for a walk right now, if I went out for a walk tonight, I have a playlist on my watch that I can use my AirPods with, and I can go for a walk and leave my phone at home.
Yeah.
It will track my walk, and through GPS. So, and that'll all sync to my phone when I get back. So that's not an issue. That part is not an issue. But what if something happens and I get a phone call when I'm out for a walk without my phone?
Yep.
Well, then I'm kind of screwed. So usually, except when I was testing this, usually I'll just throw my phone in my pocket just in case.
Sure.
But now I don't have to do that. I could leave my phone at home, fly to New York, and only have my watch and still get phone calls and text messages. I'm not saying I can do everything on a watch. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I can get phone calls, text messages, and I will be able to communicate with people.
Yeah.
And that's perfect. And the fact that you can stream Apple Music over your watch now with LTE, I mean, yeah, that's a big thing.
And do that remotely as well, right? You don't have to have your iPhone.
Yeah, and do that remotely as well. So there's a lot. I said in the first articles that I wrote about Apple Watch that Apple Watch changed the way that I used my phone.
Yeah.
And it really did. It's about to change even more. because I can just tell Siri, hey, call whatever on my watch, or I can accept the call. I can do anything and just talk, because I can do it like you saw that woman in the demonstration, when she was paddling, or I can put in my AirPods, which I always have in my pocket, and do a call.
You know what I wanted them to do? I wish they had done it, and I hope someone does do it. I wanted to see her jump off that paddleboard and have the call keep going through.
Oh, yeah.
Have her pop up out of the water, not talk underwater, and that's not what I was expecting, but have her jump in the water and pop up and then still continue the phone call. That would have been kind of cool.
Well, I'll tell you this. Jeff Williams, when he went off script.
Yes, which was kind of cool.
And he did go off script and said she was not mic'd up.
Yep.
And I was talking to Gruber about this today. That made us kind of sit back and say, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we knew it, but we just never thought about it until Jeff said she was not mic'd up. So keep in mind, she's paddling, her hand is going up and down, and she's still talking, and she wasn't screaming.
Yep.
And yet we were able to hear her just fine.
It's interesting that you say that you guys sort of went whoa in that, but I saw it as soon as the video popped up with her. I went, oh yeah, look, there's no microphone. And it was obvious that she was talking on the phone, because as her arm moved, the sound moved in and out. That was fine, but it still was very clear and a good quality thing. But him going off script to remind folks of what was going on, I thought was really interesting. And I guarantee you, he wouldn't have gone off script if Steve Jobs was still around.
No doubt about that.
No chance.
But
it was kind of neat, which is why, like I said, I wanted to see her jump in the water and go, look, I'm still talking to you on the phone. So, but it was very impressive to show that kind of stuff off.
I wonder how long she was floating around out there waiting for that call.
That's right, because it didn't look like she was anywhere near shore. So she looked like she was a few hundred meters off the shore, so paddling away.
She would have had to go out for like a half an hour earlier, just to make sure that she was all set, everything worked.
Oh yeah, they would have done a test and everything. Oh yeah, exactly.
Oh, that would have been crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this is interesting enough, and it's not because of the LTE. For me, this is the first Apple Watch I really want to get. I think this is one that I might just treat myself this Christmas and stop eating food for a month and just get one of these Apple Watches for the first time. But I'm like you, I don't use the phone very often, and I wouldn't pay the extra fee for the LTE connectivity. But it is nice that your phone also has the same phone number, and they seem to have done a lot of interesting things behind the scenes to make this special. The thing that cracked me up was the amazing, and if you were one of these people, I apologize for what I'm about to say to you, whining about the red dot on the dial.
I love the red dot.
I can't believe you'll complain about the red dot. I mean, it's a
why
dot.
Do people complain?
Because it doesn't look good. It's whatever. It's just nerds being nerds. I got to find something to bitch about. So I want to bitch about the red dot. The red dot's going to be facing away from you 95% of the time. It's a red dot that if you want, you go to your local nerd store, buy some modeling paint, paint it whatever frickin' color you want.
Yeah, I really like the red dot, to be honest. I mean, the first time I saw a watch with the red dot, when I was talking to Tim, and his watch had a red dot, and then I looked at mine, and mine didn't have a red dot. Well,
I want a red dot.
What the fuck, Tim? I mean, why you got to be like that? Why you got to hate on my plain old watch here?
That's funny. It always cracks me up what people find to complain about. There's not a lot else to complain about when it comes to the Apple Watch. It's a good device. I thought it was a bit disingenuous of Apple to say we're the number one watch manufacturer in the world, beating Rolex and all those other companies, which is great, except they still haven't given us a number. So I will criticize Apple for that, just the way I criticize Amazon and their Kindle reports. We sold more Kindles last year than ever before. How many? We're not telling you. Well, then fuck off.
Yeah.
It's the same with Apple. Until Apple gives us a number, all those sort of marketing text speak kind of things, I really don't care about. Yes. 50% more than last year. They could have sold 2, and now they sold 4. So 50%.
No, that's absolutely true. And I pick on Amazon for the exact same thing.
Yep.
But they did give one hint, in that they are now the number 1 watch seller in the world. So if you can find out how many Rolex sells, I don't really care, to be honest. But find out how many Rolex sells, and then you will know Apple sells more than this anyway. So, yes, I do agree with what you're saying. But in context, if you say we sold 50% more year over year last quarter, okay, well, that doesn't really mean anything. That, like you said, that could be 2, it could be 4. But if you say, and we are the number 1 seller in the world with all the other brands listed there, it's not like they said, left any doubt that, is that just smartwatches or is it analog watch? They listed the brand. So now you know they are the number 1 watch seller in the world.
Do you really
the thing
believe
that got me about the whole watch thing was that the heart rate monitor is the number 1 used heart rate monitor in the world.
Sure. Yeah.
Holy shit.
And those new features of the heart rate monitor are really kind of cool. They can tell you your resting heart rate over time, over an average. It can warn you if your heart rate goes a little wonky kind of thing. I think that's a good idea. But backing up on the sales, do you really believe that Apple Watch is selling more than Timex?
Well,
I mean, come on. Timex, we all had Timex. Wasn't that your first watch as a kid, a Timex?
Well, yeah, but I mean, when did you get your first watch? From like 1910?
I would. But what I'm saying is, Timex, you can buy a Timex for $25. And that's the first watch the vast majority of us ever got. I know it was mine when I was 10 years old.
Shawn, that was a long time ago.
So people still buy Timexes.
Well, apparently not as much as they buy Apple watches.
I mean, if Apple had said luxury watches or watches over $1,000 or whatever price point they'd picked, but they didn't.
They said
and that's
the world.
Because what that means is that Rolex is selling more than Timex. So I don't know.
All right, now you're just starting to piss me off.
I will admit, though, I have noticed in the last 3 to 4 months, a lot more people are wearing Apple Watches. The version 1 of the Apple Watch, I saw very, very few people out in the wild wearing them. And I always commented to the person, do you like your Apple Watch? Version 2, I see so many nowadays that I don't even feel like commenting on it. I don't even feel like asking people about it. I probably see at least 4 or 5 a day now, whereas before I was seeing 1 a week. So I definitely accept the fact that Apple is selling more of them. I just want, when they say those kind of numbers, I want you to put up or shut up and tell me what those numbers are. The same complaint I have with Amazon and Kindle. So let's get to the point of a little side point, because you critique this on the Loop, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Over the weekend, a massive, whether you call it a security breach or a leak, controlled or not, authorized or not, happened, and a lot of the details, not all of them, but a lot of the details from yesterday's keynote were revealed in a method that you personally were very vehement about on the Loop in not liking. Explain why you have a problem with that.
Okay, so I know a lot of news sites covered this leak, and I understand why they covered it. It is news. I'm not upset with the news sites for covering the leak. I am pissed off with how a person that works for a company can accept a paycheck and then screw them like this.
Yeah, but people have screwed their employers for millennia. What's the big deal?
But I am just as upset with them. I don't know how they can do that. I don't know how what kind of a person does it take to say, I will take your $100,000 a year or more, and And then on the eve of your big show, I'm going to screw you.
And this is not to blame the victim mentality, but how much of the responsibility is on Apple for not having that stuff locked down? And it was apparently it was on a publicly available, if you could have guessed it, URL.
You would never guess it. Never.
Yeah, true. I agree.
So somebody maliciously did this.
Yes.
It wasn't a mistake.
I agree.
It was a malicious act.
Yep, I agree. But
so
the argument could be that every leak and leaks that are reported on the Loop, rumors that are reported on the Loop, every one of those is a malicious act.
Well, see, this is where I think that there's a fine difference. There are some interesting things that come out either from analysts or from news sources or whatever, where you say, this was from Apple. This was an internal malicious act to damage the company.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is so much worse. And they didn't give one thing. They didn't say, oh, this is going to happen. They gave everything.
So it's a matter of the volume that you have an issue with?
No. It's a matter of the act itself that I have an issue with.
But the act itself is no different than any of
the
other.
Different.
It is not different. It's still people leaking information that Apple doesn't want out there.
Well, no, you can, but some of that information is coming from China. Some of it's coming from supply chain. Some of it's coming from, all kinds of different places. This came from an Apple employee. This to me was just inexcusable.
Okay.
I hope they find him and do what's necessary.
Well, the only option they have is firing the guy.
I would like to see him charged.
That's interesting. I don't know if I'd go that far. I mean, certainly he would be fired and blackballed as much as Apple could, given the situation. But I don't know if. Yeah, I guess you could, at least in civil suit, because the way Apple does their NDAs, it's pretty easy to sue somebody. But I don't. I guess I am not upset about it as so many other folks in the media are, and it's not a matter of, as some people have accused members of the media, oh, you're just mad because they didn't leak to you. No, that's not it at all.
I could care less about that.
But it's for me, and I don't think it's disingenuous for you or anyone else, Gruber or those kind of guys, to complain about this sort of thing when those people have taken advantage of leaks in the past. I'm just curious as to why the vehemence on this particular leak as opposed to the other leaks is the reason why I was asking.
To me, it's looking at the company itself,
mm-hmm.
and my problem is I do not understand how a person can do it.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Well,
I really don't.
Because, it's because you've had a good boss your entire life.
If you're shut up. If you're angry at a company, quit.
Yep.
I don't understand. I don't.
So the reason why I bring that up is obviously we all knew or thought we knew that it was going to be the iPhone 8, iPhone 8 Plus, and iPhone X or 10, as Apple wants us to call them. Now I got to assume that you had read all the leak stories, and so you knew most of what was coming, but you were in the room. Was it still exciting being in the room, knowing what was happening ahead of time?
Sure, it's always exciting to see what's happening live. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about that.
See, for me, because I didn't read any of the rumors beyond the headlines, I saw massive leak over the weekend. I went, yeah, okay, I don't care, move on. I wasn't going to read any of that stuff, and all the rumors that we've heard over the past 6 months of this stuff, all I ever read is the headlines, and because I don't care about them, I move on and forget them very quickly. So for me watching this, even though I knew it was iPhone 8, iPhone 8 Plus, and iPhone 10, I was still excited to see what they were going to announce, and for me, the way they announced it and the details of the announcement. We knew Face ID, but we all had questions as to how this Face ID stuff was going to work. So for me, not being as steeped in the rumors as I used to be in the past, still made the event itself kind of interesting to me.
Well, I'll be honest. I didn't read the rumors, full stories or anything.
Yeah, me neither.
I didn't. I saw, that it was going to be the iPhone 10, and I thought, okay.
Yep.
I saw something on Twitter about the Animojis,
yep.
Which was a bit different than what was reported. So there was some surprise.
Yes.
There was some details that we didn't know. There was, a lot of things. I knew that the Apple Watch would use the same account as the iPhone, which was great. But yeah, it's still exciting to be in the room.
So iPhone 8 and 8 Plus versus iPhone 10, there's some really interesting comparisons of these. Now, you got there in the hands-on space, right? What iPhone do you use now?
7 Plus.
What iPhone what iPhone did Apple give you yesterday? I tried to get you. I tried. Yeah. I tried. So
I didn't get a phone yesterday.
So you're running with a 7 Plus. Give the audience kind of a feel comparison between the 7 Plus and the 8 Plus and the 10. Are they bigger, smaller, heavier, thicker?
The feel. I was wondering about the feel of the back of the 8 being glass, and I don't know if I thought it would be slippery or what I thought, but it actually feels very good. I did like the feel of that, and we didn't get much of a chance to play around with the 8 because we're on pedestals.
Really?
You know how they do that pedestal thing?
Yeah.
So we didn't get much of a chance to really hold them. So I can't even give you a comparison of what size-wise that would be in comparison to a 7 Plus.
So did you get to handle the iPhone 10?
No, that's what I mean. Oh, no, I did get to handle the iPhone 8, not the iPhone 10.
Okay.
Yeah. The iPhone 8s are exactly the same.
Yeah, Apple is saying that even the cases for the iPhone 7 and 7S will fit the iPhone 8
Correct.
and 8 Plus.
Yeah. Everything is the same.
So physically, the physical dimensions of it are the same. And
right.
You said the glass makes it feel less or more slippery?
Less. The glass actually felt really good.
Because that's the worry I've always had with my iPhone 6 Plus is the fact that the metal. It's the very first iPhone I've ever gotten that I've had a case on it 24/7 because it feels like it's going to fall out of my hand. So I want one that's less slippy than the previous versions.
Yeah, this one is less slippy, definitely.
You didn't get any chance to take any pictures or anything else like that with it. So you said you got limited time with it. Were there any Face ID demonstrations there that you guys could look at or test out? Yeah, because it's going to be set up for your face, right?
Right, it's got to be set up for that. But I really think that through the demo that we saw that what the hell was that?
With my cat.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he's got a hell of a loud purr.
Yeah, it does. I think that they did a good job in Face ID of eliminating a lot of the problems that we thought we would have with it.
Speaking of Face ID, and let's take our friend Dan Morin to task on this one over at 6 Colors. Face ID failure on stage. Did you guys even notice it in the audience?
Oh, yeah, we did, but it wasn't a failure.
Exactly. It was not a freaking failure, people. It worked exactly the way it was supposed to work. It just worked in a way that Federighi wasn't expecting at that moment.
Right.
It didn't fail at all. It did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
God damn it.
He lifted it up, and it said, Face ID needs your password. If he had typed in his password, it would have been great.
Wouldn't have been a problem.
But, when you're in the middle of a demo in front of millions of people, That's why they have backup phones.
Yep.
So you just grab the backup and do it, and it works fine. So
And
no, there was no failure.
No, there's no failure. But I hate the way the media, and in this case, I'm picking on Dan Moore over at Six Colors, calls this a failure. It was not a failure. The machine didn't break. It didn't not work. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. Just did it differently than what the presenter was expecting. And they moved on. He moved on inside 10 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
So why the media wants to blow this up as some sort of gigantic failure on Apple's part just shows how much these people want Apple to fail.
Yeah.
They're looking for things to complain about.
No, it was just that any person that says that was a failure does not understand the technology and what was happening at the time.
Now let's talk about the technology itself. It's really interesting. It works differently than I think any of us were expecting. We knew it was going to be called Face ID, but we didn't know the details of it, and we didn't know that's the reason for that sometimes ugly notch that's going to be in the top of the screen. This seems like there's a lot of technology packed into there. What did you learn in the hands-on area that we didn't know about from the demonstration?
Nothing.
I didn't think so. You're a big help.
Thank you.
One of the things
didn't learn anything.
One of the things I'm curious about is that Apple's very clear on the fact that if you grow a beard, then it will learn your face over time.
Right.
But what happens to you, Jim, when you set up Face ID with that magnificent chin face thing you got going on there, but then shave it off the next day?
That's a good question.
I wonder.
Not going to try it.
I know, of course, I would never ask you that. There's not enough money in the world to make me ask you that question. But that's something I'd be interested in knowing in reverse. I get the idea that as you grow a beard, because you're looking at Face ID, you're looking at your iPhone 30, 40 times a day, it would see over time that you are growing a beard and adjust its model for that. But I'd be curious about the other way around. What happens if you have a beard, set up Face ID, shave the beard off? Would it work?
Well, what if I did my beard, took the thing with it, and now supposedly it does it all with the dots, but you can't see the end of my chin.
No, that's right.
So what if I put it in a braid or something?
Yeah. Or did a goatee? Yeah. This is not a big deal. This is not. I'm trying to say that Face ID is spoofable or fakeable. It is in very specific situations. I'm not really worried about it. I do believe now. This is not. I'm not the guy at Ars Technica who's a frickin' moron who says that Face ID is going to suck. But I do believe it will work.
How does he know?
Exactly. How does some kid at Ars Technica know it's going to suck? He doesn't. Shut up. But I do know from the way I saw the demonstrations that at least now I think I like Touch ID more.
Why?
Well, if no other reason, I don't have to lift my iPhone to make Touch ID work. Right?
Fair enough.
If my iPhone is off to my left, I can just put my thumb on it and the screen brightens up. I can read that text message and then go on about my work. With Face ID, you have to at least move towards or get your face in front of the iPhone. Now, other folks, someone else, I think it was Dan Moore, again, complaining about the fact, well, he likes Face ID because in the cold, he doesn't have to take off his gloves. Well, in the cold, you're wearing a ski mask, for Christ's sake. Okay. Dan's talking about that wimpy Boston cold. I'm talking about real frickin' cold up here in Canada.
Yeah.
Where I'm. Well, and the other thing is, I'm wearing a helmet.
There's one other thing to consider. What is it that you're going to do with your phone with gloves on once you do open it with Face ID?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're still going to take your gloves off.
Nothing. Yeah. You're still going to have to take your gloves off.
Yeah. So that's another silly argument against or for or whatever it was that he was making.
You may actually have to take your ski mask off.
Exactly. That's right. I like the idea of Face ID. I think it was interesting that Schiller said that Touch ID was a 1 in 50,000 chance. They had never said that before, did they? They had always made it seem like Touch ID was almost infallible. But now they're saying, no, 1 in 50,000 versus 1 in a million. I'm not against Face ID per se. I just think that the way I use my iPhone, Touch ID would be more convenient. And by the way, you don't have to use Face ID, do you?
No, you can use a passcode.
You can still use your passcode. So until I actually use it, set it up, and play around with it, I like the idea, and I didn't think I would, the Animoji stuff and the Snapchat
Oh,
stuff.
my God, that was so funny, the Animoji
It was
stuff.
hilarious.
Oh, I was laughing. Oh, I thought that was great.
You know that in the Apple Christmas party, they're going to have video of Federighi making the unicorn face.
Oh, that was just
hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. So
that chicken, the angry look on the chicken was just amazing.
And there's only 12 emojis now, but you know Apple's going to release a whole bunch more, and then they'll let other people release their own. And you'll have Incredible Hulk Animojis, and you'll have Marvel character Animojis you can buy as a 12-pack and all that kind of stuff. So now I'm probably never going to use it except for the first cutesy few times. But you can see how other people, kids in particular, young adults, grandparents,
and me,
and you,
and me,
exactly.
I said in the story, I think this is one of the funniest things that Apple has ever released. And if you're in my contact list, watch out.
You said that on Twitter. That's right.
Yeah, because I'm going to use the hell out of that.
P. Booth says, "Can law enforcement hold your phone towards your face to open your phone?" Jim?
Well, as long as your eyes are open.
Yep.
And you're looking at it.
Yep.
Don't see why not.
But now Apple didn't talk about this. There is a method supposedly in iOS 11 where you can basically lock out your phone, that it can't be used that way. And then as Jim said, the other thing you do is just keep your eyes closed. But I have a better solution. If you are worried about the police grabbing your phone, holding it to your face, prying your eyes open, and making you look at your phone, there's a simple solution. And the solution is, when you set up Face ID, use a screwed up funny face.
I don't think it'll matter.
Stick your I think it would. If you stuck your tongue out and made a really goofy looking face and set your Face ID,
that's not going to matter.
You don't think? I'm going to try it.
No, that won't matter.
But yeah, that's definitely an issue that could happen. But I think Apple is in iOS 11 has got a thing that will help you lock that ability out. That even if the police held it up to your face, it wouldn't.
I think the better piece of advice is not keep your criminal activity on your iPhone 10.
Well, there's that too. Exactly. Don't do bad things in the iPhone 10. I guess that makes sense too. The name of it. Do you like iPhone 10 or iPhone X?
10.
I like X. I think X just sounds cooler. Now, the other issue is, what do you think? This is from Reuters. What do you think about the iPhone shipping delay? It may dampen Apple's holiday quarter.
No, I don't think so. They said it'll be available on November 3rd.
No, well, Reuters is saying there's a shipping delay. How do they know it hasn't happened yet?
Well, I assume that what they were talking about with the shipping delay is that it's not shipping next week with the others.
Exactly, but that's not the way they make it sound. They make it sound like it was supposed to have been released last week, and now because it's not coming out to November 4th or November 3rd, there's some kind of shipping delay. Fuck you, Reuters. Yeah,
that's just, again, irresponsible. Unless they say it's now not coming until December or January. But otherwise, Apple said it would be available on the 3rd. Now, what are the pre-orders for that going to be? And how many are going to be, available?
Do you think that November 3rd ship date will hurt the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus?
No.
Neither do I.
No. There is nothing one way or another that's going to hurt sales of iPhone 8 or iPhone 10.
No.
It's there are people that are going to, and we talked about this before about the prices of the iPhones. The flat out prices are still expensive if you want a $99 phone.
Yep.
But the iPhone 8 is a magnificent phone. It really is. All that updated hardware and portrait lighting. Oh my God.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about that stuff.
Oh my God, that is amazing. I mean, I'm going to be able to take like really good pictures.
Really? I know. First person I thought about was you.
Yeah. See how good that is? I that kind of stuff. See, this is the stuff that changes the way that people use their devices.
Yeah.
Everything's got a camera now, so camera doesn't matter. It's what you can do with the camera.
Yeah.
And as we know, I can't do much with it. But when you look at the iPhone 8 and the portrait lighting, it really absolutely changes the picture.
Yep.
That I did get a chance to play around with.
Yeah.
It really does change things.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And you can change it later. I can take a picture of you with like stage lighting and then go into the picture later on and say, I think I want to use this other one instead.
Exactly.
And change it.
Yep.
It's amazing.
It's going to be really cool to watch how people do that kind of thing. The other thing I thought was really cool that I don't know if Apple's getting enough attention for is this wireless charging. We assumed it was coming. We had been talking about it now for a year, and Apple feels that it's finally ready. Did you even think about the fact, why are all these wireless charging pads all circular? Why aren't they the size of the iPhone?
I don't know.
I know. No one seemed to know that, except John Gondor on Twitter when I asked this, because to me it seemed like a perfectly logical question. Why can't they be the exact same size as the iPhone? It's because a circle is the easiest shape to do the wiring in. If you do it anything else, you're using up more wiring and also introducing potential kinks in the wire around the corners of the pad.
I did not know that.
I never even thought about that, because every charging pad I've ever seen has always been a circle, and I've often wondered why isn't it the exact same size as the iPhone, and that's why. It's because
I'm going to use that and say it's mine.
You go right ahead. That's the kind of dick you are. You go right ahead.
I had no idea.
No
idea that was the case, but I suppose that makes perfect sense.
Why do you think Apple?
But AirPower is rectangular.
Rectangular, yes, but sorry, no, it's not. It's oval shaped.
Well,
no. Ovals are still easier to do than right angles on a rectangle.
Well,
Speaking of AirPower, did you think it was curious? Did you guys talk about that in amongst your little media selves as to why Apple pre-announced this thing so early?
Well, I wrote in the story that I think they did it just to have something new.
Yeah. One thing that people hadn't been talking about.
Yeah, I don't think that was just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think that was scheduled to be announced. And they said, okay, well, we got to have something. So they added in the AirPower. Well, I think AirPower probably would have come maybe at WDC next year or at an event next year. And they pre-announced it now.
Well, I think, as MacMan points out in the IRC chat room, FCC certification would spoil it anyway. Very much like the original iPhone. They've got to get FCC approval for this AirPower, Matt, so they just might as well say it as opposed to letting it come up and be a rumor.
Yeah.
I like his explanation much better than yours.
Well, you would. That's the type of person you are.
Nice. I think that, and it was so funny to watch all the Android folks talk about, well, Qi's been around for years. Android's been using it for years. Yeah, fine. Good for you. Pat him on the head. But Apple is going to be the one that makes this popular. Apple's going to be the one that makes this. It'll make manufacturers, it'll make restaurants put these things into their tables. You'll see coffee shops that'll advertise AirPower. It doesn't matter what it's going to be called on the other end, but it'll be wireless charging. Come in and use Apple's AirPower. Now, keep in mind, it won't be very fast. You're not going to get a full charge sitting in the coffee shop for an hour. It's meant to do things overnight, but you'll get a bit of a top-up at the coffee shop. The downside is you obviously can't use the device while it's being charged. And no, that's right. Some folks have been saying that the wireless charging won't work until a software update sometime before Christmas, but it will work now, but it'll be faster after the software update. That was one of the things I wanted to mention to folks to keep that in mind. Overall, I thought it was a very good keynote. I think even with all the stuff that we thought we knew ahead of time, I still thought it was a very interesting, well done, well presented keynote. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think there was a lot of people are complaining there wasn't anything about the Mac or about High Sierra or about HomePod.
That's not what this is.
Thank you. It really wasn't for those devices. Plus,
again, the people that are complaining like that don't understand what this event was about. It's not a Mac event.
We didn't hear a whole lot about iOS 11 either. You know why? Because Apple's already announced it.
Yep.
It's already up on the Apple website.
And they had so much stuff that they didn't even have time to do their normal run-through of iOS 11.
Yeah.
They barely mentioned it at all.
The bottom line is, and I thought it was interesting when Cook said it, that Apple, I think Apple believes this. Let's see if it's actually true. The future of smartwatches is the iPhone 10. Do you agree with that?
Future of smartwatches is what?
Cook said that this was the future of phones, of smartwatches. This kind of is going to have wireless charging and Face ID and edge-to-edge screen. God, I wanted to screen at my TV every time they said edge-to-edge screen. It doesn't have an edge-to-edge screen, does it?
Wait, you're saying that the future of smartwatches is the iPhone 10?
Sorry, no, smartphones.
No, you said smartwatches.
My apologies. I'll fix it.
That's why I'm here getting confused. No, don't fix it. Leave it as it is.
I never fix shit, dude. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm too lazy to edit. Are you kidding me?
You don't even know what post means.
I know. Jeez, I can barely spell it. You spot me the O. I couldn't even spell it. But this is, as I was explaining to a friend yesterday, even if you have an Android phone, what Apple announces affects your Android phone, both hardware and software, because both of them borrow from each other quite heavily. But it'll be a while before I think any other manufacturer comes up with Face ID that works as elegantly as what the iPhone 10 looks like it'll work. We don't know for a fact yet, but it looks like it works in a much, much different, better way than anything else. We've heard that the Samsung versions can be spoofed with photographs, and Apple says theirs can't, for example.
Well, I don't know how many times we've said this in the last 20 years about Apple. Apple did not invent facial recognition.
Yep.
But they are going to bring it to the masses and have it work like nothing else before.
Same with ARKit.
Oh, same with ARKit. Yep. Same with music. Same with video. Same with almost everything. Yep. Bluetooth and, wireless headphones and, just name it. And Apple makes it work because they take the pain points away from us. Yep. If my phone, I want to try, and I will try that. I will try holding up a picture and stuff like that and see if I can spoof. And if I can, look out, I'm going to be pissed.
Hell yes. Well, you should be.
The fact that they look at details like your eyes have to be open and be attentive to the phone in order to unlock it. You can't be looking away. Yep. You can't have your eyes closed. I mean, it knows this stuff. They even went so far as to get masks made and see if they could spoof the phone, and they couldn't with like Hollywood masks. Those things are almost lifelike.
The other aspect of all this, the notch. Is the notch is annoying? I understand why the notch is there. I get why the notch is there. But at least when they showed video on the iPhone 10, I went, ooh, that notch, ooh. Did it bother you guys in person?
No.
No? Okay,
no.
Maybe. I know I'll get used to it. I know it's not a huge deal. Like I said, I understand why it has to be there. But
the notch looks like a notch. Yeah. It's small. It's got so much packed into it. but it's so small, and the screen is so big around it, you just don't notice it.
But now Wayne is saying, what do you mean it's not edge to edge? I'm not seeing a bevel in the images. There's a bevel on the images I see. It's not edge to edge. It doesn't wrap around. There's still a small, yes, it's small, but there's still a bevel around the edge of the iPhone, correct?
Shawn being Shawn.
Well, I'm just trying to get them to be accurate. That's not edge to edge.
Okay.
All right. I'll let you go. You've been on for a good long time. I appreciate you sticking around for this length of time, folks. We're talking to Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. He's here each and every week. Glad you enjoyed the presentation yesterday, Jim. I was looking forward to hearing from you today, and glad we got a chance to talk.
Yeah.
Thanks, buddy. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And as always, folks, if you have any comments or questions or whatever about anything that Jim and I talked about, or any of your own thoughts about the event yesterday, I'd love to hear from you guys. I watched it yesterday by myself, first of all, and then I watched it again with Melissa. And as I said, Melissa is the average user. She's not steeped in the rumors. She's not a nerd of any kind. She is a completely average user of technology. She loves her iPhone. It frustrates the hell out of her at times, just like her Macintosh, just like it does for every average user when the computer or the iPhone doesn't do what she expects it to do. But overall, she really, really likes it. And the interesting thing I heard from her, now you remember me 2 weeks ago, or last week's show, bitching about the price of the iPhone. It's expensive. Unless you are quite wealthy, $1,000 on average is a lot of money to pay for a phone. And as I've reminded people, think of it as a small computer. Okay, $1,000 is a lot of money to spend on a small computer. And the closer you are to poverty, the greater that $1,000 becomes. So $1,000 is a lot of money. Don't minimize that. Don't say, oh, it's not. No, it's a lot of money. And that's $1,000 US, kids. Here in Canada, it's rumored to be around $1,300. Again, $1,300 for a small computer is a lot of money. Don't ever say it's not. Is it worth it? That's entirely up to you. That's entirely up to the individual person. It's easier for those folks, and so many people say, well, just buy it on the Apple Update program. Well, I don't think we have that program here in Canada. In Canada, we have the usual buy it on contract type thing, but not the update program like you have in the States and other places. So people say, well, it's easier to pay for it on the update program. Yeah, but it's still going to be $1,200. That money's going to come from somewhere. Whether you pay for it over time or you pay for it in one lump sum, it's still going to cost something at some point. So it is a lot of money. It's obviously more affordable on an update plan or a payment plan, but it's still a lot of money. So I don't have a lot of money. So I have to think long and hard about whether or not the features, the abilities of any new device is worth it for me. And I got to tell you, I've got my iPhone 6 Plus, which I love. I love the size of that screen. Massive screen for me. Loved it. But the iPhone 10, with that new camera, with the new power of that A11 chip, with the possibilities of the future of that, because I think that someone said it on Twitter, the iPhone 10 is the most future-proof of the iPhones. That, obviously, because it's the latest and greatest, it'll last you longer. I'm going to try to find a way to pay for the iPhone 10, because I think that's really, really attractive. Even more so than certainly not the 8, but certainly more so than the Plus. I really want to get the iPhone 10. So that's for me personally. What about you? Does the price point put you off? Does the size put you off? I know we were talking, I think I was talking to MacMan earlier, and he was saying that, because he's not eligible or not going to upgrade until next year, he didn't have a whole lot of interest in the Apple event. That's fair. I understand that. But will you upgrade? And what will you upgrade from? So I think for folks like me who have a 6 plus and below, if you have a 5, it's a no-brainer to get the 8 or the 10. If you have a 7, especially a 7, maybe not. A lot of folks probably wouldn't. But that's the general upgrade cycle. ArcSign says iPhones are expensive. iPhones have been expensive. There's no need to pretend Apple's products aren't expensive. People have been paying for Apple's expensive products for a while. And Apple has offered a range of iPhones at lower prices. I buy those every 4 years. Exactly. Trying to minimize that by saying, it's not that much money. It's bullshit. It's a lot of money. There's no way around it. And Monty says, A11 Bionic. I can't see that name without hearing the sound effects of the $6 million man in my head. I know. In Mosquito, it's indeed a stupid marketing term. Why would they call it that? It's so jarring. Why don't you just call it the A11? There's nothing wrong with calling it the A11. But by using that, especially that word, bionic, because for a certain generation, that has a very specific reference. It's the $6 million man. That's where most of us heard the word bionic. Half man, half machine. So when Apple showed it on stage as A11 Bionic, I went, what? It completely took me out of the presentation, and I thought, well, why? And if you don't get the reference to the 70s TV show, then the word makes even less sense. It just threw me off. Why are they calling it bionic? I don't understand it. Just call it the A11. Arcstein says, you get to decide how much you spend on smartphones and how often. Apple does what it needs to do to sweep in consumers' money. I agree. Absolutely. Absolutely agree. Email onair@yourmaclifeshow.com if you want to comment or send me any thoughts you have about Apple's presentation yesterday. The bookends of the way they began the show and the way they ended it were wonderful. This might be, and I hate to say it, might be the last time we get a reference to Steve Jobs on a stage. I don't think that there's any real need going forward anymore. For those folks who are watching the video, that's my favorite picture of Steve Jobs. With that look in his eye that it feels like he knows he's smarter than you are, and he was, and that he knows more things than you do, and he did. If that was Apple's farewell to Steve Jobs, it was a wonderful farewell. It was a great way to send off a great man in the company's history. Someone said that this was Tim Cook's chance to finally take over Apple. Tim Cook took over Apple a long time ago. That baton was passed a long, long time ago. This is Tim Cook's Apple. Has been for at least 5 years, if not more. The company is going in the direction that Tim Cook wants it to. There is no remnant of the direction of Steve Jobs anymore. This is Tim Cook's Apple. The ghost of Jobs will forever wonderfully haunt the company, its DNA, its reason for being, why employees do what they do. But Tim Cook absolutely and completely is running Apple going forward. He'll be missed, but I think the send-off that Apple did yesterday was a wonderful way to do it. want to say thanks very much to the nice folks at Lowepro, Lowepro.com. Folks at Lowepro are donating 2 of their camera bags to the audience. All you have to do is go to the website at yourmaclifeshow.com and fill out the entry form. It's right there at the top of the page. YML, Friends of YML. Excuse me. Friends of YML, you fill out the entry form, fill out the email address. It sends an email to me. I drop your name into a virtual hat. And then at the end of October, actually the first show in November, we will be doing a drawing for 2 Lowepro bags. Lowepro makes all kinds of great camera carrying equipment. As I said off the top of the show, this is my Lowepro bag. And that bag has been with me. I don't know if you guys can see. I'm just showing you up close. That bag has been with me on every camera trip I've gone on in probably the last 4 or 5 years. I don't know how old this bag is. I know this bag is discontinued. But look, you could not tell that this bag is 4 years old. That this bag has been dragged on the ground, strapped to a motorcycle, and stuffed full of things to bursting. It's just, they make great quality gear. There's not a single fraying line or zipper or patch or any part of this bag. So if you're looking for camera carrying gear, go to lowepro.com. Last week, Monty says, if you aren't carrying your professional camera gear in a Lowepro bag, you might as well be carrying it around in a plastic grocery store bag. Nice. Arcstein says, we're putting it in checked luggage. Exactly. When I go to Australia, my camera gear is going in that Lowepro bag, and it's going to go on me. So over the weekend, I I did a photo critique with my meetup group. And basically what I do for the photo critique is I have the whoever wants to participate send me no more than 3 photos. And I drop them into a virtual collection on Lightroom. And we go down and we sit in a pub. We sit down in a local pub, have lunch, have a beer, and we talk about the photography. We talk about what the photographer is trying to accomplish, whether they did accomplish it, and how to make their photos better, or talk about how they could make their photos better. And so this was a shot from one of the photographers who went out. This was shot in Banff, Alberta, Canada. And it's a lovely shot, long exposure shot, 25 seconds. And you can kind of see what he was going for. He was going for that sort of, not star trail look, but long exposure shot. And this is the shot raw out of the camera. And this is why I tell folks you want to shoot in RAW. It makes a difference shooting in RAW, because what happens when you shoot in RAW, if your composition is right, you can fix a lot of issues later on in Lightroom. And here's the example of the fix in Lightroom, and it's really a remarkably, wonderfully vivid visual representation of that. So there's the original, straight out of the camera. And there's the shot after he did fixes in Lightroom. He did a great job of brightening up the main subject in the center. Look at the mountains off to the right. Look how dark they are in the original shot, but how wonderfully bright they are once it comes out in RAW. Hang on, let me see if I can't zoom in on this for you guys. Where'd my zoom go? Damn it. Stop it. Boop. Look at those mountains in there that were just completely invisible in the previous shot. You can barely see that the mountains are there. That's the difference it makes when you shoot in RAW. Now, the downside is it's a little fuzzy. Notice the shots, the image isn't nearly as clear, as tack sharp as it should be. And that might just be the glass he's using. You can see up here, there's a 25-second exposure at f4 with ISO 1600. Now, I told him for the kind of night shot he was shooting, he didn't need to use ISO 1600. That's too high in ISO for a light shot. You can actually see the grain in this shot. For a 25-second exposure, there was no reason to go with ISO 1600. If you're doing long exposure shots, you might as well keep the ISO at 100. Monty says, is that a person in the bottom center? Not only is that a person in the bottom center, that's the photographer in the bottom center, which is really kind of cool. What he did was he composed the shot, set the timer, and then ran over and sat down in that spot, which I thought was very, very clever of him. He was all by himself out here in the mountains of Banff. So it was kind of a selfie, exactly, Arcsign. So I thought that was a great example of what you can do all by yourself. MacMan asked if self-timer or remote trigger. It was a self-timer, MacMan. So the only real critique I had was his ISO was too high, and the minor one of I really wish his positioning had been in this spot right here, dead center, because I think that would have given a little bit more balance if his body was just over here a little bit. I like the clouds. The clouds came out beautifully. The mountain came out beautifully. So with a lower ISO, he wouldn't have gotten this digital noise you see in the shot, and he might have gotten less blur, muddiness in the stars up there. But the cool thing is it's a great idea for the shot, that he had a vision for the shot and he came really, really close to nailing it. As a amateur, that's a really good attempt. And now he knows he can go out there and try it again. This is not a one-off kind of shot that he's never going to be able to get again. It's not like he's traveling to Vietnam and never going to visit there ever again. He's in a place where he's from. He's from Alberta. So next time he goes home and visits, he can try that shot again. This is a shot one of the folks took, and this shot's funny because the first thing I thought of when I saw it was, okay, well, you just stole this from Google, because this is one of the most famous pictures of Italy. This is the Cinque Terre area of Italy. Beautiful. Cinque Terre is five lands, 5 places. It's 5 little towns that you can hike between on the coast of Italy, and they're just spectacularly beautiful. This is another long exposure shot. Interestingly enough, he shot this from this is a graveyard that overlooks the town. And if you do a Google search, you will find almost this exact same image on every Google search on Cinque Terre. Sorry. Why did you do that? Don't do that. Don't do that. Come here. Because it's such a common shooting location that everyone shoots there, so everyone gets the same shot. It's so common, as a matter of fact, that you see this boat here. This boat is in everyone's shot. Every shot of Cinque Terre that you see, or this particular town in Cinque Terre that you see, has that exact same boat in it. You can see up here, it's a, let me see, another 25-second exposure. But in this case, he shot it at ISO 100, which is really good, at f14, which means a lot of it was going to be in focus. And he used a Canon 24 to 105 millimeter f4 lens shot at 32 millimeters. So it came out nice composition-wise. One of the problems with shooting this kind of stuff at 25 seconds is when you zoom in, you can see really obvious blur. So these are boats that are moving on the water. And over 25 seconds, they just become a blur. You can see the people who weren't moving are in focus, but the people who were moving, so this couple here hadn't moved very much for 25 seconds, but this guy did. So he's a blur. But those are the things you only notice when you zoom in on the shot. The biggest issue that I had with his shot was he's not a guy that likes to do any kind of post-processing. That's fine. That's your choice to edit or not edit. But as I always tell people, editing is half the shot. Very, very, very few of your shots, especially for beginners, are going to be perfect out of the camera. And in this case, in the example of this particular shot, because I know this area, because I've been here, because I know what this looks like, I know that those buildings are much, much more vibrant than what is in his shot. The blue, that center building, sorry, I'm going to get my mouse over there. This building here is a lovely, lovely rosy pinky hue, whereas his shot is kind of a washed out color. And these yellow buildings here are wonderfully much brighter yellow than what he's got in the shot. So basically what he needs to do is up the color saturation or the or the vibrance of the image to capture the true color of the image. But because he, either wasn't comfortable editing or just didn't want to edit, the shot just doesn't have the true color that it should have, given the wonderful subject matter that he's shooting it at. This shot was one of the photographers was setting the shot up on the beach. This is his niece and her fiance, and he was doing a little wedding shoot for them. And he planned it this way, and it came out the way he wanted to, except when he brought it into the edit, he noticed that the sun is just an unfortunate freaking blob. I mean, there is no detail whatsoever in that sun. It doesn't look like it looks like a nuclear explosion. It looks like these two people have decided, well, we're going to die, so let's go die here. So because he's overexposed the sun, he can't fix that. One of the things that you need to learn as a beginner is that if it comes down to overexposing or underexposing, underexpose. If you have a choice, underexpose. Make things a little bit darker, because it's easier to get detail out of an underexposed shot than it is to get detail out of an overexposed shot. That overexposure in the sun, you're not getting any of that detail back. It's gone forever. Whereas the underexposure of the beach down here or of the people, you could actually, I can show you that too. I can show you an example of that. I can use the exposure slider and just watch what happens with the people on the shot. Let me just get them in. Where are they? So I can move the exposure slider, and you can start getting details. You see how the beach is getting, now obviously it's overexposing everything else, but now there's detail in that beach, if that's what you wanted. So keep that in mind. If you have to do one or the other, always underexpose a little bit. And then as ArcSign says, oh, the bright spot between the people is distracting. It's not just distracting. I think this bright blob here in the center just ruins the shot. And what it is obviously a reflection of the sun. He's got this lovely composition with the sun and the water and right over the people's heads. But because of that little gap between them, you have this, again, small nuclear explosion between these two people. And that's easy to fix. You could very, I think I could do it pretty quickly right here. You could very easily fix that. Where is it? I just click there and click there. Oops, click there and click there. Click done. Yep, I thought that was going to work. Why didn't that work? Anyway. Oh, there it is. Let's try this again. Why didn't that work? Edit. And there's that. And then there's that. And then that. Click done. I don't know why the thing isn't doing it. That's annoying. Anyway, you can get rid of that spot. But as who was it said? Yeah, MacMan said a gradiated filter or graduated filter would have helped a lot. And what a graduated filter is, it's kind of like sunglasses over your lens. And it allows you to lower the intensity of the light in situations like this. So he's shooting this at, I can't see what that says, 1/1000th of a second it looks like, at f5.6 ISO 100. So what he would do is he would tell those folks to stand very, 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 very still and put a neutral density filter on it that would lower the intensity of the sunlight, and he'd probably shoot for 2 seconds or 3 seconds or maybe even 5 seconds. So therefore the sun wouldn't be as bright. It'd be a much prettier orange, and you'd still get the people in silhouette in the foreground. Susan Gare says, my husband wants me to point out that the flare is right at their groinal regions. Thanks, Greg. I can't believe that Greg didn't have the balls to say that himself. He made his wife do it. Geez, what a coward you are, Greg. Another lovely shot that one of our photographers took, and this is shot in here in Vancouver. A very famous scene in Vancouver, similar composition effect. Almost the exact same problem, too, that the sun, the moon in this case, is overexposed. And because he shot it at, what does that say, 15 seconds? 15 seconds. Because he shot this at 15 seconds, you've got this big blob where the moon should be. And because 15 seconds, the clouds have moved, you've got blur. So one of the things I told him was that what he could do is simply edit the moon out. And so now you've got this shot without the blobby moon distracting you at the top of the image. MacMan says you have to treat a full moon pretty much as you would the sun. Exactly. It's a gigantic, massive light source in your image. In this case, I would more likely probably use what's called a polarizing filter. And a polarizing filter is, it's the same circular filter that you screw on your front of your lens, but it also continues to move around. So you've seen sunglasses where the top half of the sunglasses are dark and the lower half are clear. Well, that's what a polarizing filter can do. Half of it is dark, the other half is clear, and you put it on your lens and you twist the filter around. So the filter is either the bottom half of your shot, the top half, the left, or the right. So in this case, you would twist the filter around so that the filter, the sunglass part, would be over the moon. So you'd block out the moon, or you'd let less light come in from the moon and still get the person. It's not a person, by the way. It's a statue on the rocks. And that would allow you to balance the light out. You wouldn't get that big blob of sunlight at the top, and you'd still get the nice dark silhouette shadow at the bottom. It's, again, this is another great shot idea-wise. The idea in his head, his vision for the shot was really good. I really liked what he thought about doing the shot. I lived in Vancouver for many years, never even thought about going and doing this shot. Now I will. The other thing is that, what else we said about it was that, there was something else about this shot. I'll probably remember it later. So keep that stuff in mind when you Remember, I've talked many times in the past about light. You have to see light, and you have to learn how light not works per se, but learn how you can control light using different things. The more challenging the light conditions are that you're shooting in, the more you need to know about photography. So both of these shots, both say the couple or the statue on the stone in the water, if you'd shot those on a regular, everyday, sunny Saturday afternoon, would have been a problem. You would have gotten a shot, and it would have been a couple kissing and a statue and a rock. Fine shots, taken a million times. But as soon as light starts getting challenging, you've got to start thinking more about how to control that light, and about how to let light in and stop light and those kinds of things. Who said it? Someone said about a polarizing filter, something. Graduated filter would have helped a lot. Composition. Monty likes the composition. Yeah, Macman. A circular polarizer is a mandatory item for every camera bag, in my opinion. That's probably one of the pieces of equipment I recommend for beginners the most, because it's fairly inexpensive, about $50, and can solve a lot of these kinds of problems when you start getting into that kind of challenging light. When you've got a big blob of light source over here that is dominating the rest of your shot, you can just basically put a pair of sunglasses over it. I've used it often when you're shooting on a sunny day and you're shooting water. You know that when you're not shooting, you have that wonderful sparklies of the water, but you turn a camera on that stuff and it just turns a crap on you. But a polarizing filter dials down that you still get the sparkly bits, but it won't be nearly as overpowering as when you shoot normally. Macman says, great for reducing glare since reflected light is polarized. Exactly. That's what it does. It reduces glare. So if nothing else, go out and get yourself a polarizing filter at your local camera store or Amazon.com or whatever it might be, and play around with using a polarizing filter. As always, if you have any questions about this or anything else we talk about in Starting Point Photography, I'm happy to help you guys out. Send me an email to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. And again, I want to say thanks to the nice folks at Lowepro who are sponsoring this segment for the next month. Lowepro.com is the website. What is digital zoom on a camera? Asked Patty. Digital zoom, sorry, Patty, the short version is never mind. Don't use it. There's no such thing as good digital zoom. It's just always awful. There are two kinds of zoom on your camera. There is what's called optical zoom and the digital zoom. Optical zoom is when the camera lens elements physically move back and forth to zoom in, move in and out, to zoom in and out. Like the old style telescope that you push the telescope in and out to move it. That's optical zoom. It's using optics to create a magnification. Digital zoom uses computers to create a fake optical zoom. And because it uses computers, digital zoom is usually not very good. It's something that you only use when it's absolutely necessary. And I guarantee you that the shot you take with a lot of digital zoom will not be as good as the shot you take without it. It's a fact of life of digital zoom. It's just an awful kind of zoom, and you should really avoid using it. But that's the difference. Digital zoom is computer generated. Optical zoom is physically moving lenses back and forth. So keep that in mind. Got a comment from Daniel Breck. Hey, Shawn, on last week's show, you mentioned you were using an iPhone 6. Is that the Plus model? Yes, Daniel, it is. Either way, how's it performing for you? I love it. I didn't get the iPhone 7 Plus because the iPhone 6 Plus was great. The only difference for me was that camera in the iPhone 7 Plus. I really would have loved to have that, but it wasn't enough of a difference. It wasn't enough of a step up for me to swap my 6 Plus for it. Reason being, I'm considering buying a one used, and it seems like a great buy these days. Should have a few more years of support from Apple. I'm coming from an Android phone where I'm finding myself doing more maintenance to make sure my phone works than it just working. I have an iPad mini 4 and think it's fantastic. The iPhone 6 Plus seems similar in specs. Just curious to see how it works for you. If it was not broken, how long would you keep yours? And even the break on my iPhone Plus, it's not that serious. I mean, look, you can't even see it there. Where is it? It's up here. It's just a minor. I don't even think I can show you guys. It's that minor. Yeah, there's no way I can tilt this phone. Oh, you can just barely see the crack in the glass there. It's completely minor. You run your finger over it, and you can barely feel. It feels like a scratch in the glass as opposed to the corner of the glass broken. It hasn't gotten any bigger. That's the thing for me. If it gets bigger than this, then that would be a concern. So it's not broken in a way that doesn't work. Yeah, I love the big screen on it. As we get older, I find I love that big screen. For photo editing, I love being able to edit photos on that bigger screen. And it's kind of funny, when I had the 5, I took my iPad everywhere because I wanted to edit photos. And the iPad's got a bigger screen. Now with the iPhone 6 Plus, I don't take my iPad anywhere anymore because I can edit on the bigger screen of the iPhone 6 Plus. So, yeah, if you're moving up from an Android phone to an iPhone 6 Plus, you're going to get a great phone. So, definitely check it out. Our friend Roddy Paw says, I'm a bit behind listening to last week's YML talking about Irma. I didn't know it was the most powerful storm ever seen in the Atlantic. I used to live in South Florida, but I'm now in Orlando by Universal Studios. The storm moved through last night, though the eye was to the west. We never lost power in the complex where I live, but the building was literally moving with the wind gust. Oh my God, that must be terrifying. There are some trees down. That's about it. Now it's time to focus on tomorrow's iPhone 7 announcements. Sorry, iPhone 8. I hope the phone doesn't cost $1,000, but with tax and AppleCare, I paid a little more than that for my stolen iPhone 6S Plus. Sorry, Roddy, it's going to cost $1,000. And then he says, and I'll take hurricanes over the cold. Yeah, you know what? I'll take the cold over hurricanes, brother. I get what you're saying, but yeah, I'll take cold over a hurricane. Folks, that's it for tonight's show. A little extra long edition because of all the announcements that happened yesterday on the Apple event. Again, if you have any comments, any questions about the Apple event, let me know. I may not be able to answer them, but I'm happy to read them on the air. Maybe one of our very, very smart listeners will be able to help you out. As always, thanks very much to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com for joining us. Thanks for the nice folks at Lowepro. Lowepro.com for sponsoring the Starting Point Photography segment. And as always, thanks to you guys for joining me here each Wednesday evening. Until next week, as always, I've been Shawn King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!